What's up, everybody? P. Pardo here from Comic Book Geezers. Welcome to another episode of the show. Today, I'm just going to give you my thoughts on the Champions series. So, of course, a few days back, I showed you that I finished up my collection of the Champions. I had to get like, 10 or 11 issues out of the 17-issue run because I really wanted to kind of complete this whole series because I like what I've had over the years, but never had the whole run. And wanted to go and finish up the run, so I showed you all the covers of all 17 issues. And over the last 2 days, I've actually read all 17 start to finish. So from issue number 1 all the way to number 17, because obviously there were a lot here that I had never read before. And even the ones that I have had for many, many, many years, some of them I've had for, 40 plus years, I hadn't read them in forever. So it was kind of cool to go back and read this entire thing from start to finish, beginning to end. And I wanted to come on here and talk about it a little bit and give you my thoughts on this series and why maybe it didn't succeed. Because I think there are reasons why it didn't succeed, and I wanted to kind of talk about them. So, of course, issue number 1 starts things off. And I think, it's pretty apparent right from issue number 1 that they're not quite sure what to do with this team. And I also don't think the art in the first 2 issues is all that good. So Don Heck did the art on the first 2 issues, inked by Mike Esposito. Did Mike do both of the... let's see. No, so Mike Esposito did the inks on issue number 1. Issue 2 was also Don Heck, but with John Tartag. All right, and you got the story here. Tony Isabella wrote this. So, right off the bat, I found I really didn't care for Don Heck's artwork here. Don Heck, I think, was better in the 60s. He was never been one of my favorite artists, but he's, it's not terrible. But as I kind of go through these first 2 issues, I was left kind of like, I don't know. Maybe it's a combination of his art with Mike Esposito's inks. Doesn't really work for me. And I find that their depiction of, like the Ghost Rider, Hercules looks a little too skinny. The action scenes seem very blocky. Right, it's not awful, but it's also not great. So I think that got things off to a kind of a slow start. In addition to, right off the bat, so they introduced characters from Hercules' side of the fence. You got like Pluto and Ares and whatnot. Zeus is in the picture here, right? So right off the bat, you've got a 3 storyline run, which doesn't really give you any new champion side characters or their own villains, right? So we're mining from the past already, right? Because again, I get it. You got to get this, got to get it off the tracks, right? Somehow, right? So issue number 3, which is the last of the 3-part kind of thing that happens through the beginning. You've got George Tuska and Vince Colletta doing the art and the inks, and I think there's a huge improvement here, which you can see right from the main page. Look at Natasha, woohoo, right? But I mean, there's just some really good stuff going on here. I've always liked George Tuska's art from Iron Man and Luke Cage, and I think he lends a lot more to this. Certainly his heroes look more symmetrical. Hercules looks like the fearsome brute he actually is here. He makes Iceman look a little better. He's also his Ghost Rider is a little more convincing, but not so much in the face, though. I think he doesn't make Ghost Rider look as fearsome as he should. But I think everybody else looks quite good here, so I don't mind that too much. I think his artwork is pretty good. I do want to show you. I believe it's from the next issue, if I'm not mistaken, because I mean, this is the main problem with this book is that they kept switching art and inker teams and writers like nonstop throughout this series, which I think is just absolutely annoying. And when you start to get used to one particular way of art, they change it up quite a bit. So this is issue number 4, right? Which is a good one. This is one I've had. I bought this off the rack back in the day, and I think George Tuska's artwork looks quite good here. So, like I said, I would have been happy with this continuing on, with George continuing on here, because I thought he did an excellent job. And, here, we're starting to get more original stories. I mean, look at this great splash page. They're fighting each other here. I mean, that's some serious art, right? That's not too bad. So, pretty good there. I think we're on the right track. But then I believe it's issue number 5 where we see, if I remember correctly, we see a change again. I'm just going to kind of accessing my notes here. So now we got in issue number 5, we've got Don Heck back again. All right, and Don's working with John Tartag once again, and they introduce an original villain called Rampage, which is basically this really smart brainiac guy who develops this kind of exoskeleton suit that gives him superpowers and whatnot. Pretty cool villain. He's got the really good brains, and he's got the desire to do bad things, and he's got this amazing suit, and he gives the rest of the team a really hard-fought battle, and he becomes like one of their main villains for a few issues, right? An original villain, because that's what they needed. They needed original villains for this team. Also here, one of the things that they beat to death in this comic is this whole thing of them voting the Black Widow as the leader of the group, but then others on the team questioning that leadership quite often, which, didn't we see that enough with Hawkeye towards Captain America and the Avengers? Didn't we see that enough with Johnny or even Ben towards Reed Richards and the Fantastic Four? Right? It's like we've seen these things over and over and over again. It's like enough already. So here you've got Angel is occasionally second-guessing her. Ghost Rider for sure, second-guessing her, and as opposed, not even second-guessing her, but just trying to bully as the man's viewpoint in a lot of these. And her constantly like snapping back at him saying, I'm the leader, you voted me in, just kind of fall back in line and do as I say type of thing. In addition to that, you've got Iceman, Bobby Drake, who is constantly playing the whole, I'm the young guy on the team, I don't get taken seriously enough, and maybe, after we deal with this latest situation, I'm just going to quit, I'm going to leave. And he says it like in every issue. It's just like enough already, So that's kind of annoying. They kind of alleviate that as it goes on. So issue number 6, where we have a cool Kirby cover, right? Cool enough for Kirby back. This is not classic Kirby, but this is 70s Kirby, right? Here we've got George Tuska and Vince Colletta back again. So here we're going flip-flopping back and forth. And I know George Tuska was doing a lot of books right around this time. But again, pretty decent artwork. You got, the continuation of the story against Rampage. I'm okay with it. Then, after this, they decide to go and bring in some villains once again and let's form a villain team to go up against them. And we've got the Griffin. Okay, and for this particular issue, now we move over to, so we stay with George Tuska and Vince Colletta again, which, for my money, probably should have just started with them, right? Here you've got them facing off against the Griffin, and like I said, Darkstar, who's a new female character, who I think is quite good, and she winds up kind of turning to the good side and pretty much becoming almost a de facto member of the team going forward after a couple issues here. But, once again, George Tuska drawn Ghost Rider does not work for me, as you can see there. No good. But he's doing a good job and everything else. And here they bring together a lot of Ivan and Natasha. Ivan, of course, the good friend of the Black Widow. Natasha, they bring in some characters from their past, right, from Russia. The Griffin, who we've seen go up against the Beast, in Amazing Adventures. All right, so he joins the fray. And then we see they add Rampage joins this team as well. And we've also then got, as you'll see coming up here, you've got Titanium Man, Crimson Dynamo, right? So you see here the last page, Crimson Dynamo. And the Crimson Dynamo came along for the ride. Good stuff. This is a pretty interesting storyline, right? Because it brings into the story, Black Widow and Ivan's past, right? You get the Crimson Dynamo, and it's so pretty good stuff there. This is a 4-part story. So here we've got now Bob Hall joins the artist team with Bob Patterson. All right, so for this particular issue, this is part 2 of the storyline. And I'll show you a little bit of the art here. Bob Hall, not terrible, not great. Like I said, Rampage is back. So now we've got this, a formidable team going up against the champions. As you can see, I'll show you the last page. So the art's pretty good here. Coloring is really good in this issue as well. So there you can see, right, not terrible. And Bob Hall would pop up on the next issue as well, which I'll show in a second. And, it's funny how, Gil Kane did a bunch of these covers, but never worked on the inside of any of them. So here you've got Bob Hall once again here. So now you can see there's Darkstar, right? There she is. Titanium Man, Crimson Dynamo, Griffin's also here, and then Rampage. But Rampage kind of falls by the wayside at some point. But again, pretty good story. Like I said, this is a multi-part storyline, and it does eventually tie up, as you would expect, into issue number 10, which is right here. Here also, you've got this constant bickering back and forth between Ghost Rider and Hercules. Because Hercules sees Ghost Rider as just this spawn of hell, right? Doesn't really take him seriously as a regular mortal, but thinks, it's probably some evil in him, right? So that's going on here. Then also, once Darkstar kind of flips her, she becomes kind of like goes to the good side and starts hanging around with the team, and they basically accept her, with the exception of Ghost Rider. Ghost Rider from the beginning is like, no, you were against us before. I'm totally not going to take your side. I'm not going to accept you here. So there's this constant tension between those two going on. Then at some point, Bobby, the Iceman, starts to take a liking to Darkstar. I mean, he can relate to her, and I think he's got a crush on her. So then he's constantly rethinking everything he does and going, towards her. Then we've got, but Darkstar never gets added as an official member of the Champions, nor does the Black Goliath, who at the same time, and from what I read originally, he wanted to be, I think when they originally thought of the concept of this team, he was considered to be one of the original team, but because they launched his brand new comic at the time, they kind of ixnayed that. So, but they did bring him in here. So if you remember, if you're a follower of the Black Goliath, the storyline where he's fighting the Stilt Man, that happens right before the events of this particular book here. So he's they're actually cruising around, and something happens to this little thing that they ride around in, and Black Goliath jumps up on top of the roof and kind of stops them before they crash and helps save them. So then he winds up kind of working with them a little bit, fights alongside them briefly, right? He pops up in a couple, but mainly in this particular issue. That opens it up for the next one, which has the Stranger. Okay, issue number 11. And here we've got Bob Hall once again, and Bob Patterson. Sorry, no, that was on the last issue here. This is, so you got John Byrne and Bob Layton start working on this one. That's a John Byrne cover, so I want to show you. So John Byrne would work on a few of these issues, which to a lot of people at the time was very welcome. And you got Bill Mantlo did wrote this. So John Byrne, Bob Layton, Artist Inc. team, Bill Mantlo. So again, there you've got Stiltman fighting Black Goliath. Look at this great splash page. I mean, this is some heavy duty art. This is without a doubt the best art that has ever hit this particular comic. John Byrne, just terrific. Obviously, you guys know John Byrne from a lot of other things. And I think he really got all of the characters. He makes Ghost Rider look kind of menacing, as he should. He makes Hercules looks massive. He does a great job with Angel's wings. And Natasha looks great. I mean, just all around good stuff. When the Stranger pops in, the Stranger's got to look massive, right? Job well done. But, even throughout here, one of the things I'm noticing is the team is constantly, you have all these, they're still not used to each other as a team. And there's still the constant bickering going on where you got, Hercules wants to jump up and fight on his own, or one of the other ones, and like, but we're a team, we should wait. We should all go together. That's what we're supposed to be, a team. They've got their own team building. They somehow in all this, they get a building like the Baxter building, and they get all this equipment, right? How did this all happen so fast? I don't know, whatever. But then part 3 of this, okay, also with John Byrne and Bob Layton. One of the things, and this introduces a new villain here as well. One of the things that I've noticed all throughout this is I don't find that the Ghost Rider fits into this team, into any of these storylines. He's just an oddball here. I love Ghost Rider, but he's not like team material to me, especially not a team like this. This doesn't make any sense to me. And they try, and you could tell because I went and read all the letters on all the letters pages throughout all of these, and that seems to be one of the recurring themes from everybody who wrote in, is that love Ghost Rider, don't love him on this team, and Marvel really, really like kind of put their foot down and we're like, we're not moving him off this team, even though everybody's telling us we should. That doesn't make any sense. You got to listen to your customers, listen to the readers, and I think there are a lot of things that happen in this series that they could have tweaked a bit to maybe improve things going on, because what wound up happening is they were starting to get, based on better artwork, better storylines, they were starting to get more of a viewership, but it came too late. The book was already struggling right out of the gate. So in issue number 14 here, again, this is part 1 of 2, a creature called Swarm. So they created this new villain who is basically here. It was kind of like this skeletal creature who all the bees would come together and form a body for him, and he would then have control of the bees. So kind of a lame villain, but kind of interesting, I guess. To go up against a team, I don't know about that so much. So here, again, another pretty good issue. Again, now Iceman, again, more having the... taking a liking to Darkstar. Here is the conclusion of that particular story. Again, good action, good artwork. You've got the team of Byrne. Now Byrne and Mike Esposito, still really good. Let's show you what one of these looks like, because I think John Byrne's artwork is quite good on all of these, as you can see. Cool action page here. Good stuff all around. A lot of action in these issues. All right. So then, after that ends, if you go to one of the what's it called? The supervillain team up, I believe it's called. And which issue is that? Issue number 14. You've got Dr. Doom and Magneto kind of going head to head. So that starts the story, which then picks up here. And some of the Avengers and the Champions get thrown into the whole mix here. So here you've got the battle. So the Champions wind up siding with Dr. Doom. You've got the Beast and the Hulk siding with Magneto, because they've got these powers they're not really siding with. They're not doing it of their own will, right? And then you got this nice follow-up battle for the first time since way back when Hercules and the Hulk fought in Tales to Astonish, yeah. So here you got a follow-up there between the two of them. And this particular issue, you've got Bob Hall back. Would have been great to have John Byrne do this issue. Not that Bob Hall is terrible. He's actually not. But it's not quite the same. So here, like I said, you got the Hulk jumps into the fray. There's the Beast. Kind of a disappointment after the John Byrne issues. But then what's cool is you got, and the Hulk is just thrown in quite randomly. It's like Dr. Doom just basically teleports him there, and he's under his control. And I'm thinking, well, if you could do it here, why couldn't you do it anytime, right? You could have the Hulk do your bidding anytime. So then you got a nice follow-up Hulk and Hercules battle, which is always good. They wind up, obviously overtaking Dr. Doom. Everybody starts to remember what they're doing, and why am I doing this? Where am I? And then they defeat Magneto. He goes away, and then that's the end of that. And then the last issue is issue number 17, where they fight up against the Sentinels, which is pretty cool. And this basically, and then it just ends. And this basically concludes. There's one of the Iron Man annuals. I think it's Iron Man number 4 or something like that. And this we've got George Tuska back with John Byrne, which is pretty good. The artwork is really, really good in here. But no real explanation about what's going to happen. But however, then you fast forward to, I think it's issue 17 and 18 of Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Man. They kind of then have Peter Parker goes out to L.A. and there he kind of starts hanging out with Iceman and Angel. And then they describe the whole kind of, disillusion of the team and all that kind of stuff, and that's that. There's no real clean kind of like this is exactly what happened type of thing. It's just done. And another example of a comic book series that just never quite really got off the ground, and they just pulled the plug on it. And this happened so much in the late 70s with Marvel. They tried so many new series that never really worked out. Omega the Unknown, the Champions, Devil Dinosaur, Machine Man 2001, The Eternals. We can go on and on and on. I know a bunch of those, Black Panther, Skull the Slayer. I mean, there's just so many new ideas that they tried throughout the late 70s. And I think the problem was you did not have consistent artist, inker, and writer teams working on any of them. They were just constantly shuffling and changing everything. And it just, you look at some of the long-standing comics that survived. You had the artistic teams, even if they didn't work. You look at Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, Thor, Captain America, X-Men, Fantastic Four. I think I mentioned Fantastic Four, Avengers. Right? You look at all these comics that Iron Man that stood the test of time. You had artists, inkers, writers who worked together for long stretches of time. Doctor Strange, right? Gene Colan, all that. You had the ones that worked because there was consistency. I think a lot of the comics where you had change-ups on the artistic side, every issue or every 2 or 3 issues, back and forth, new team. Oh, we'll use that team for a couple issues, whatever. That's not a recipe for long-standing success. Like I said, I mentioned all those other classic books. You had the Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, work together for however many, 30, 40, 50 issues, right, on Fantastic Four. Same thing with Thor. You had that team, and then once, that stopped, you had John Buscema came in, right, and he was on the book for many issues, right, but this kind of jumping back and forth constantly. Plus the fact that it's basically a team put together of heroes that we don't quite know what else to do with. You got these 2 X-Men who aren't in the X-Men anymore, and they're just kind of flailing away over here. You got the Black Widow, who was in and out of the Avengers. You got Hercules in and out of the Avengers, appears in Thor a lot. Black Widow, we had her as a big co-star in Daredevil for a long time. She was part of half of another book for a while. You got the Ghost Rider, who has his own book, right? But let's take him out of that and put him in a team. Maybe didn't make a lot of sense, but there's a charm to this team, though, because they were very, very different. And they were put together, the whole kind of tagline for them is, we're going to fight for the common man who have common problems. And they stated that a lot in the beginning, and then the rest of the series didn't really kind of come back to that at all. So kind of strange. Like I said, I like Champions. I think this is a pretty fun read. And I would urge anybody, and you can get these for really cheap. They're not expensive at all. And I would urge anybody who has not collected these to go out and give these a read. There's also compendium collections that have like the whole series and pulls in those couple of other issues from Spectacular Spider-Man and Iron Man and whatnot, where in the supervillain team up, where it has all the storylines included in 1 volume or 2 volumes. So that's worthwhile too, if that's the easy way to do it. But yeah, cool stuff. I'm a big fan of the Hercules character, so I think it was really cool to see him in something like this. And I like all these characters on their own. Do they work together as a team all the time? Maybe not. But there are some good issues here. There's some really good issues. The ones that last 2, 3, 3-part story, 4-part story, those are really, really well done. And I think the ones with Titanium Man and Crimson Dynamo are really excellent. The Griffin, those are really fun. And yeah, there's some good stuff here. Well worth checking out. But yeah, it's got its faults, and I can see why it didn't really last. So anyway, thanks for watching. Let me know what you think of any of these ideas or my opinions on the Champions, why it worked why it didn't work specifically. And we'll see you next time here on Comic Book Geezers. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and click on that notification bell so you get alert of all of our content as a post. And please do hit the like button before you leave. We've also got the link down below to the merch page. See a Tranquility merch page. Scroll all the way to the bottom of there. You'll see Comic Book Geezers t-shirt and coffee mug. Thanks in advance, everybody, and we'll see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.